When it comes to energy,
All forms of energy.
in this case, the energy industry,
The Department of Energy.
Economics and energy.
in the transition to renewable energies.
sustainable energy,
Anyway, so you can see what they're predicting, the Department of Energy, that petroleum consumption, energy consumption with petroleum and other liquids is going to be kind of flat, maybe dip a little bit, but it ends up being about the same. The blue line right below it is natural gas. That's a big increaser, and so is renewables. That's the green line. So that's the idea that what the Department of Energy thinks is going to happen going out to 2050. At the end of 2050, it's about 50% solar, 50% natural gas.
The really exciting part, though, is that we also serve as leaders in the transition to renewable energies as well. There's a lot of really great nonprofits in South County, and my nonprofit as well, doing work around things like active transportation, or the Green Business Program, or Solarize Santa Barbara, which I believe is the Community Environmental Council doing some work to add solar panels to nonprofits.
There are completely different jobs out there now.
An opportunity to get good paying jobs.
Of course, we want good jobs.
Do hands-on science that lead to jobs.
Healthcare support and practitioner jobs.
An increase in oil production translates into more jobs.
The highest paying job sector, as was pointed out, is the oil industry.
This is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Solar photovoltaic installers, the fastest growing occupation. It grew by 105% over the last few years. 105%. Next, wind turbine service technicians. These are the fastest growing. It's incredible, right? And then, you were right, this third one is healthcare, home health aides, personal care aides, physician assistants, nurse practitioners.
The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says that healthcare support and practitioner jobs account for 8 of those 15 projected fastest growing occupations in the U.S. until 2026.
As much as 27% of the workforce in oil and gas in California are Latino employees. We do believe that they enhance our community. A good job for an employee does trickle down into the community because more money is spent and more businesses are helped by that. It helps us buy homes. It helps us send our kids to school, college. It helps us be good consumers. Having that good job helps our community.
our Chumash resort and facility. And we have nearly 2,000 team members that depend on us on a daily basis. So when we're talking about jobs and being able to support them and speak up on their behalf, it's extremely important.
And what was needed to change the economy?
Economic factors with the tribe.
Having economy in the future.
There are economic trade-offs.
Talking about economic vitality.
Specializations being in macroeconomics.
Vibrant economy and so forth.
Our organizational mission calls for the economic empowerment and enhancement of our community.
Another one of our big, really economic factors with the tribe is our Chumash resort and facility. And for us, that's an area where we can really get creative on being responsible. The lights are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Talking about economic vitality through being able to develop programs to support that. Just to give you a scale of size, and we have 3.75 million visitors annually that walk through our facility. We have nearly 1 million square feet of developed space. We have 2,400 Class 3 slot machines, 9 full-service restaurants serving about 1.3 million covers per year, approximately 2,400 parking spaces, 320 hotel rooms, 2,500 square feet of pool deck, 1,500 square feet of entertainment and bingo space.
What do we know about input-output tables? Vasily Leontiev won the Nobel Prize back in the 40s and 50s for designing input-output tables. What does that mean? It means for every dollar that gets spent, we know where it goes. We know when you go to Home Depot and buy, a new shovel, we know where Home Depot then spends their money. We know where, when you get income, where it goes. And we can trace every penny. And that's what input-output tables do. What we ask Walmart would be, tell me how much income you're going to be getting. Tell me the revenues. Tell me the taxes. Tell me employment. There's going to be direct effects. And direct effects are impact from direct spending, in this case by onshore oil and gas, because we have the numbers for them. How much they spend on hiring people, on building, on whatever it is they do. That's called direct. Indirect is the impact on other industries from direct spending by onshore oil and gas. And then what you do is you do the following thing. You say, okay, the fact that Walmart is here, or this company, these companies, whatever it is, the fact that they're here, they generated 715 employees. That was the employment effect. They generated this much output, $149 million. That was the direct effect. That is their people they hire. The indirect effect is that stuff that they spend on, as I said, and then there's an induced effect. And then you come out with numbers like this. And what you end up with is this thing called a multiplier, 1.88. What is the multiplier? The multiplier is for every dollar that Walmart spent, or the oil and gas industry spent, there was an economic output of 1.88. That is, it generated more stuff because you're hiring more people. How much gets spent on subsidies? Well, renewable energy from the federal government, they get about 60% of the subsidies, of the $18.4 billion that the federal government spends on subsidizing energy. Fossil fuels get 25%. Energy efficiency gets 15%. So that's where the government's spending their money, your money, on subsidies. We want to make good choices.
Come up with workable resolutions.
Having open dialogue with all parties.
It's for or against. It's 0 or 1s. It's all or nothing.
And so it's really difficult to be a regulator and be a person that's in the middle.
We need to come up with a comprehensive plan.
Have a broader conversation about clean energy opportunities.
People want clean, healthy water.
So on the oil and gas side, we send it to the environmental community, we send it to oil and gas operators.
The most responsible thing that I can do as a policymaker.
Come up with some kind of a consensus.
If we want to change the world, we have to change our thinking.
We have a culture that really embraces conservation. And conservation is not just from an energy perspective, but just a way of life for us. We consider ourselves the stewards of the land. And traditionally and culturally, caring for Mother Earth is very important. Protecting sacred sites, and really, our traditions and our customs of giving back to the land as well.
So what's our duty? Not just as elected officials, but as the electorate, our voters, everyone. We want to make good choices. And there's only one way to make good choices, by the way, is to understand all of the impacts of the decisions that we make. And by that, I mean we have to think in general equilibrium. We need to come up with a comprehensive plan. We need to think about transportation. We need to think about how to make things more energy efficient. Without thinking deeply, we're going to make these things that we hear about unintended consequences. I never want to hear those words come out of a politician's mouth. What it means is you didn't think about it. What do you mean unintended? Why don't you think about it and then say it was intended? We just weighed the cost and benefits.
There are colleagues of Dr. Rupert's at UCSB who would say we do need to get off of fossil fuels by 2050. How do you evaluate that relative to continuing to do intensive drilling through 2050? I think we could have an interesting debate. I know there wasn't anyone from the environmental community represented on this panel about the environment. I think we should have that conversation.
One of the things that Dr. Rupert talked about was what do people want? And he went over the basic things. One thing he didn't mention was people want clean, healthy water, clean, healthy air to breathe.
My concern primarily is clean water and clean air. Of course, we want good jobs and we want families to be able to live comfortably. I am not willing to risk our drinking water aquifers.
It's a very polarized group of people. The people that are pro-oil and the people that are anti-oil are so far apart that there's almost nothing that can come together on. And that's very much like we see in Washington today. The polarization of these competing groups is just unresolvable. My question to you is, what can we do to have everybody put their swords on the table and discuss this in a business manner that will allow us to come up with workable resolutions, understanding that people that are pro-oil are not going to get to drill indiscriminately, and people that are anti-oil are not going to get a perfect score on their whatever it is they're looking for. Internal combustion engines are going to be here for until 2050. So we're going to keep drilling for oil. So how do we do that and provide ourselves, our communities, our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren with the necessary protections to allow us to continue to grow in a positive manner?
What can we do with this north-south county divide? Is it real? Is it perceived? Why is it here? How can we bridge that? And so for what it's worth, I think that the nonprofit and the foundation community can play a really strong role in facilitating that conversation.
Take a look at each of those areas that were mentioned, such as clean water, clean air, vibrant economy, and so forth, and how they are impacted by the different energy kinds of applications, whether that be oil production or renewables or whatever, and have some kind of a neutral organization evaluate that cost and benefit analysis. Another piece of it that I think has been missing today from the conversation is the role of technology in ameliorating all of those kinds of risks, and also how technology can bring benefits to both sides of those equations, and come up with some kind of a consensus.
Dr. Rupert spent a lot of time talking about the marriage between economics and energy. And the reality is in Santa Barbara County, there is no marriage. We are divorced. We do not look at energy projects, or really any land use project. We try to, I've been told many times, not monetize land use decisions. So I have a history of supporting the oil industry. And I'm proud about that for one major reason, is because if you look at Santa Barbara County, and everybody represents a different district. I represent the poorest district. I represent the 5th district. The highest paying job sector, as was pointed out, is the oil industry. 2/3 of our kids in Santa Barbara County use our social services department. 2/3. And this is when the economy's booming. I support the projects that we do as a county and the safety net that we provide for the community. So I will be just as big a cheerleader for that solar project that comes in. I'll be just as big a cheerleader for that wind energy project that comes in. As long as it's hiring people and it's creating property tax, that's what I'm about.
My view that the most responsible thing that I can do as a policymaker is stress being a YIMBY about the next wave of energy. A yes in my backyard person, because our future should be in cleaner sources of energy and ones that can help us economically in the long run.
In California, oil and gas wells themselves, the actual drilling and construction of them, is regulated by the state. Local governments, counties, cities, get to decide whether or not you're going to have oil and gas operations in a given parcel of land. It's local land use control. But once a county or a city decides, hey, we're okay with the idea of oil and gas development here, then the operator needs to apply to us for a permit to drill. The whole point of the exercise is to demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that where the injection is going to be authorized is a place where there is no water that is suitable for human use or ag use. If it is suitable, then operators can't inject there. And in all of those workshops, we got a whole lot of input. And one of the more common refrains that we had to ask commenters was, that's excellent information. Can you get us the actual evidence? Because if we're going to impose a requirement to protect public health and safety, and this isn't a philosophical point of view, this is actually state law, we have to actually be able to identify what is the risk that we are regulating against, and then we have to quantify the cost of that. So facts matter, evidence matters, and public health and safety matter. And we use those things, the facts and the real risks, in identifying how we're going to provide that regulation.
There are a lot of energy companies that are getting with the times. In this county, because of the Goleta RFP for energy, there are two fossil fuel companies that are going to be proposing either solar or battery storage in this county. I'm an electric car user. Test drive these things, because there's really no point in paying more to put gas in your car anymore.
I'm going to give Doss a ride in my Cadillac so that you can tell the difference. One of the things that I always bristle when the state comes out and says, okay, by 2030 you're going to do this, and by 2035 you're going to do this. And those numbers always seem so pie in the sky. And then as technology advances, we find out we're hitting those hurdles, we're overcoming those hurdles before we even get to the mandate. Would we have ever gone to the moon if President Kennedy hadn't said we'll get there before the end of the decade? Probably not. So maybe it does take Big Brother telling you that, hey, we've got to get there at a certain point, otherwise we probably never would do it. I think for us, just at the county level, it's is creating an atmosphere, and we haven't really done this with any other industry, so maybe this would be the first one, though, where we provide a path that's reliable, certain, and to allow the next generation of power and energy, whatever that is, whether it's solar or wind, to come through, and we can get people permitted and moving in the right direction.